the minutes on there?
Okay, welcome to the October 3rd, 2022 Board of Health meeting. We have no hearing scheduled today, so we will start with action items. We have an invoice for Brown Codwell in the amount of $17.25 for the Bridgewater Street landfill. Can I get a motion for approval?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Invoice approved. Approving the minutes from September 19th. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved minutes. Body art licenses, do we have
No.
No.
I just put it on there because,
of this outstanding?
and I checked in every single one of the hepatitises were a first in the series.
Mhm.
So I said, nope, I'm gonna give them to you to get that squared.
All right, disposal works permits and construction. We have 19 Chestnut Street with no variances, 29 Meltzer Street, variance to the wetlands, 29 Wildwood Ave, groundwater separation, 4 feet, 5 feet required, and a setback to foundation 7 feet, which is a 20 feet required. Jean Marie, do you want to speak on those?
19 Chestnut Street is a house that burned. I guess they're going by 15 Chestnut now.
Oh.
So you're gonna see it in there as 15.
That was my question. So
Sorry.
15, have the lots been combined, or it was 19 and then there was,
What side of it? What side of the lot they were putting the house on? It's on a corner. So originally it came in under 11, 15, and 19. So it's kind of, so that's 15 is what I guess they've just settled on.
Is it one lot?
It's one lot.
Okay.
and then seeing there's no variance, is this something that you approved?
I did, but I still want you to be aware of them.
No, that's okay. No, I
why I
appreciate
put
that.
it in there.
Just wanted to make sure
Yeah, I
that we
approved
were
it.
on track, that
But it
no
just,
variance, we've given you the.
Yep.
Okay.
it came in on Friday, so it really wasn't I wasn't holding it up or anything.
Okay.
And the others are all set?
Yep.
Okay. Motion to approve disposal works permits.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the MHOA conference.
As some of you are aware, I need CEUs every year to renew my license, and usually that's done through the Mass Health Officers Conference. And it's down in Falmouth. I'm not staying overnight. But it is $450 for the 2 days to get the 12 CEUs.
I did check into that, and that is something that we have approved in the past. So can I get a motion?
And you're not staying, you're gonna drive down daily?
It's it's
Okay.
less than an hour away.
Yep. Okay. Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Just for my records, what was the dollar amount for the conference?
$450.
$450 for the weekend?
No, it's actually a Wednesday, Thursday,
Oh, Wednesday, Thursday?
and a
okay.
Friday, but I'm not going down on Friday. I have already got 6 credits, so I
Okay.
didn't want to leave the office open for 3 days.
Licensing of boarding houses.
Okay, this one popped up only because it's part of our housing code, and I didn't see anything in our history that said, A, we licensed boarding houses, or B, we charged for them, but other towns do. So I just, like a motel, hotel, lodging, that, it's all that sort of unrelated people living in the same place kind of thing. So I just wanted to know whether or not you wanted to, and you don't have to make a decision tonight, because we have a couple of them. These two are right down behind the Joppa Grill. There's a yellow house on one side and a white house right behind the Joppa.
So currently, they're not zoned for boarding houses, correct?
Actually, they are, those are commercial zones. The only place you can't have the only place that's mentioned in the bylaws, because I looked, was in R1, which is residential, and that defines planning zoning is defined as 4 people unrelated. We hit that when we were doing 1237 Washington Street, remember that whole thing? But housing code defines it as any unrelated, with separate rooms and common living room, dining room, and kitchen. So they're sharing those things. just for your information, there are houses like that, like group homes, but group homes and nursing homes and veterans homes that are licensed by either Department of Public Health or federal authorities, we don't license on a local level. So it's kind of the ones that, if you're not that, then you're here, which is us.
But currently, are they identified in the town as a boarding house, like they've never had licensing in the past, correct?
The town doesn't identify that. But as far as housing code goes, it doesn't deal with zoning at all. We could, as part of our application, if we were gonna do licensing, you could make it zoning.
But they don't have, that's what I'm trying to get at. They're not previously licensed as boarding houses?
Not that I can find,
Okay.
not that I can find. I just didn't wanna stumble all over that when I'm doing my housing inspections and then have to back up, because we can't really do that. So,
So, in your experience, what's the, I guess, the
consider them like motels.
propensity for towns to have them being licensed? Is it more than not, or less than more?
It depends. The closer you are to a city, the more you have boarding houses. People rent rooms, that kind of thing.
The underlying question is, should we ultimately have this as a licensing element?
That's what I'm asking you. The ones I've hit in the past, in other towns, the landlord lives on site. It's their house and they rent out a couple of rooms. The two that I found, because of housing violations, the landlord doesn't live on site. So they're more of a commercial venture, I guess is what I'm gonna say. One lives in Quincy and one lives somewhere else.
My hesitation is, I just don't want to implement a new license for something that implies that we've agreed that this is what it is, if the zoning or the town itself is not classifying it as such.
Well, they are allowed in R3s and R2s. Those are more commercial zones, two families, that kind of thing. If we don't license them, I still have to inspect them, which is okay. If we do license them, then we would probably throw them on an annual or 2-year cycle where fire, building, and Board of Health go in. In other words, more like we do our foods and those kind of things. So it's more of a more commercial type zone. And that's where they are.
So if we do go to license, the inspection would be on somewhat of a regular basis.
Yes,
Okay, so right now, the only time that we inspect
is upon
is a
complaint.
complaint.
Yeah.
Now, does that affect how their taxes and whatnot are issued?
I have no
If
idea.
they're considered an income property or something?
I don't, yeah.
So maybe we should look, I don't know, I would say maybe we should look into it a little further before we decide to just
That's okay. I
broadly
just-
No, agreed.
license.
I have to do the housing thing, I just didn't, I wanted to sort of set it up before we do, it's got bed bugs, so it's on a kind of
So
a
there's only
track
two that you
anyways.
know of in town?
I'm sure there's plenty more.
There's plenty more, but we just,
Bedford Street, I'm sure, has a good number. These are different from apartments in that they have shared eating and
spaces.
bathroom facilities.
have you inspected one yet,
Yes,
from a complaint?
yep.
Is that the one that's listed under the housing?
Yep,
Okay.
one of them, yep,
So did they have an issue?
bed bugs.
And where are we with that?
Pest control's in. They'll need a follow-up.
So they've already gone in?
Yep.
Okay. All right, yeah, I mean, I think maybe we should ask zoning and whatnot, just to make sure that we're not overstepping and saying, putting a title to a situation that isn't already identified.
Okay.
Okay, Betterment loan application?
You got a couple to sign, I just wanted to remind you of that. Also, just to let you know, on the financial end of it, we'll be asking for more money in our in-house fund.
Has that already been requested?
I have another 3,000 in there. Once you get through tonight, I was gonna
Okay.
get that done. And also, we have others to sign, because they came back from the registry, because apparently they're changing the format of how they do it.
Alrighty, health agent updates?
You got your listing. Multiple assessments, for perks. It's been really busy on the new lot construction end. I've probably done about 12. Repairs, we're doing that. No plans have been submitted yet. You'll probably see them around Christmas time.
So just to clarify on the site assessments, for one particular assessment, how many times do you have to actually go out? Initial and then a follow-up? Or
Nope,
does it?
not, a site assessment's usually, I go out and I do a repair perk, or
Okay,
do one perk. But if it's new construction, there's 4 holes, 2 perks. That can take probably 3 to 4 hours, depending on how successful they are.
okay.
Multiples, they try to get like at least 2 done in a day, and sometimes I'm out there in a couple of days. Like Southridge Estates, they're doing 5 lots. I'm gonna be out there 2 to 3 days. Okay,
Okay.
so these are a couple of days on a lot of these. They're just one day, morning and afternoon, 5 to 6 hours for those. Repairs are usually I try to do them in the morning. They usually take 2 to 3 hours max, unless it's really bad, and then it can take all day. The system's under construction, 401 North Bedford, 465 Highland, 48 Washington, 25 Oakwood Terrace, 272 Pond Street, and 16 Kingman Circle. Food inspections have been done by the consultants. That kind of shows you what's happening with that. All 3 of those are gonna need follow-up inspections. Mosquitoes, we're kind of getting close to the end of that, which is good. Housing concerns, there's a ton of them. And just to let you know, when I'm doing follow-up on housing, we've got 3 to 5 inspections going on. You know, so that stretches out for a number of weeks. We talked about the boarding house one. Beavers, we had a site visit.
So, Jean Marie, could we just go back to housing? You had sent out a note this morning looking for a second to go out on inspection.
That's one that's been ongoing for a while, and if you remember correctly, the landlord was
Yeah.
supposed to have stuff
Mhm.
fixed by September 30th, or you'd start finding them. That's why today was the follow-up inspection to that.
Were you able to get out there?
The fire and the electrical went with me.
Okay.
It was a mess. And I'm still trying to mull out what to do. He's gonna probably have to put them up somewhere while he takes care of his mess. He had to red tag the gas stove, so they can't use it. They have no heat.
Because he was cited.
He pulled the cabinets off the wall, just made a mess.
He did or the tenant did, or we don't know?
We're kind of walking that fine line right this second, yeah. Well, that's typical of that scoop there.
So the heat, is the heat red tagged or it was just shut off because there's no oil?
The heat was red tagged because the oil burner wasn't working. They also have gas, and the gas was shut off because the gas stove is leaking and not working correctly.
So did the landlord shut them off?
No, fire department did,
Oh, okay, so
which
they were
is why I
still-
called
okay.
them. Because I can't do that, I can't,
Right,
that's
right.
not my call anyways, it just says.
No, because
fire. Yeah,
it was unclear when you said there was no heat or hot water and they had a flood. So did the tenants report it to the landlord?
they reported it to me this morning, a week and a half after it happened.
Okay, so the landlord wasn't aware.
He was aware.
So they did report it to him initially. Do you know what date they reported it to him?
There's a conflict on that,
Okay.
which is typical of this case.
Yep.
Not to be funny, but it has been that whole way. That's 558 West.
So as far as going forward, we need to issue him a time parameter and a deadline to take care of the stove and the heating issue?
Yeah, they can't be in there till it's fixed. And signed off on by electrical and gas and fire. Because that's who gives permits out for those things, not me.
All right, so they're taking care of that, the fire department? So are the tenants out?
They should be. I talked to them about it.
Okay.
They're gonna use their rent money to stay someplace until it gets fixed.
So they didn't pay October's rent, is my understanding.
They won't be paying the next month,
Okay.
yeah.
November's,
Mhm.
but October was paid.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
Both of them agree on that.
So what's the mechanism for making sure that it gets completed?
Well, to be honest, we should be going to housing court. This is getting ridiculous. This one's been going on since May.
housing court in what capacity?
Right, no, I know the
No, I know
location,
where
but-
it is, but I mean, if if this was just reported a week ago because of those are new.
His failure to follow Board of Health orders from back in July would be what you'd be going for.
And what were the order, refresh me, because I'm,
Okay, the orders were to, he had to do cabinets, he had to
Yeah.
fix the stove, he pulled the microwave out and did.
so the stove, I don't remember the stove being out the last time, so that's.
It wasn't out. He had to fix one of the burners,
Okay,
but now it's not
Now it's not
working,
working.
so the fire department's not happy with it, which is a bigger issue.
all right, and do you know, were the tenants amicable to letting him in to do repairs, or you're not
I
sure?
think that might be some of the problem.
Yeah, because I mean, there's always
might
two
be
sides to
yep,
this. You
yep.
can't really cite the
Yep.
landlord if he's trying to make some type of an effort. If they're actually out as of today, then this may open a window for him to comply.
Well, the tenant told me that, landlord said that their friend took the cabinets off the walls for the kitchen, and she's saying, no, he was doing it for him, so I'm not sure where that was.
Okay.
Yep, it's typical.
So what would be helpful, I think, Jean Marie, if we can resurface what we cited him,
I can certainly give you the file.
yeah, and then, and let's, you know,
And then I
so
would,
there would've been, I'm sorry, Lisa.
that's okay.
There would've been a, obviously a timeline for when fines kick in.
They
Oh.
kicked in, they should have kicked
Okay,
in
so
today.
so right now, he's being fined on a regular basis until it is,
That's for you guys to decide, but that's what you told him last time, that he had until September 30th to do the work, to fix the kitchen, basically, and do the work, and after that, you would start to fine him.
So
Under
my
the bylaw.
question before we pursue that is that how many attempts has he made to fix the work and not be let in? Because then it's kind of not in his court. And if the tenants are out now based on the fire department findings, do we put our thing on hold until they go for their final inspection and then we re-inspect to see if those issues are resolved?
or another option would be to go ahead with the fines,
Which I think
as
have more
we
teeth.
previously discussed, and warned the landlord about, and then if they are, you know, the landlord's gonna have to, a cost of putting these folks up somewhere else. But if these, you know, if they're corrected within a reasonable period of time, then we can reconvene and then decide to waive the,
Waive or
fees or
reduce or
right,
whatever,
right.
right.
I don't think we should, at this point, you know, give any more time. And then at the end of that, at the end of that, the expiration of that timeline, then say, okay, we're gonna fine. As if we've already said, yep, we're gonna fine after 9:30.
And the other
Or
thing
after
is,
9:30,
right,
you've done the inspection, fire and electrical said this is absolutely unacceptable.
Well, I think that it's my understanding that you went, prior to your inspection, you were notified of the new issues. That's why fire was there, correct?
I usually call a tenant like 2 or 3 hours beforehand just to confirm, because sometimes, to make sure they're there. And that's what I did. I called at 11, I said, you know, today's our follow-up inspection, I just want to remind you it's at 1 o'clock, and then she started with the litany of things. The other thing to remember is, even though you can find the landlord, you can also find the tenant. So if the tenant's not letting the landlord in, you kind of get that little stick with you.
So she didn't call to report it to you, you found out about it after?
No, I called to confirm the appointment,
Okay.
which is my common way of
And
doing
there's
it.
been no correspondence from the owner that he's not been allowed in, correct?
No, there hasn't,
No, okay.
but he told me that today, and, you know, the back and forth's all there. But I would, in this case, it would be very appropriate to let them both know that noncompliance with Board of Health orders can lead to a fine. And it might sort of get things moving where they should be.
So what was the fine?
It's under your bylaws, the bylaw ticketing fine.
Right, so it'd be,
The first one was a warning, we've already won them
Yeah.
both. I think it was $50 a day
I got
for
it
each
here
and every
somewhere.
time.
That might take me-
And then I assume the fire department is going to follow up to make sure that they're not there.
The fire department, no, because that's all done by Board of Health. Because our stuff says per fire code, or per building code, or per acceptable electrical code. But we're the ones that do the enforcement of it. Because we're the only ones that condemn or say someone can't use a house.
Based off fire and electrical's recommendation.
Inspections, yes. Like when they red tag something,
Yep.
that's kind of a clue. It says, you don't have adequate heat, you don't have adequate stove, improperly,
So the stove,
Installed.
I assume, needs to be fixed or repaired, and then as far as the heat goes, that was red tagged also
Mhm.
for a burner issue.
right.
And is it run by gas or by oil?
I thought it was run by gas, but then she said we didn't put oil in it, so I'm like, there's no oil tank.
Well, 'cause I
Well, it's
feel
either
like
electric, the
yeah, I
stove is
mean-
either electric or gas.
No,
The
they don't have
stove's
heat as
gas.
well,
Well, I get the heat part, right,
The stove is gas,
okay.
it's got a flame.
and their heat is oil.
I think it's gas.
Because I just, I mean, I feel
I don't
like we're
think
a
she
little bit
knows, I don't
gray
think
on
she
this.
goes down cellar that much. I think it's gas. And they might have the two sunrooms, which are their bedrooms, I think are electric. So, yeah, it's a Mod Podge out
All right, so
there.
what's the address again?
558 West.
All right, so the because I'm not following,
That's how this has been.
I know, but we told them that they had to go get outside lodging, or the fire
No.
department said it was unsafe to stay?
That's it. And I said to them, you have the right to get outside lodging. And as part of your tenant's rights, you can use your rent money to do that. Just keep your receipts.
But is it uninhabitable, or is it something that we just recommended for their convenience? Because I know the stove is an issue, but they can live in the house with the stove. The heat is a whole separate matter because of the hot water. But if we don't know if it's gas or oil, is it a matter of a functional deficit, or was it just that it's empty and not turned on?
I
Because you
think
don't
it's
have
gas,
to leave.
and gas is not a tank, from my understanding. Unless you have, I didn't see a propane gas thing outside, let's put it that way. So that might be a matter of, the fire department told me that they turned the gas off.
So they turned it off.
I want to ask him, get back to the inspector and say, you mean to the house or to the stove?
Because I just don't want us to be fining this person, and then he's also not getting rent because the tenants are seeking alternative housing if they can in fact live there. But this is something that we recommended, or something that the fire department said it's not
Those are
feasible for them to
conditions under
stay.
which people do not have to live in something, because basically when you're renting an apartment, you've got a condition of habitability. It has to have heat, hot water.
Right, but is the heat
electricity.
and hot water non-operational, or is it just that the oil tank isn't filled and it's shut off? And, because I thought you said there was a discrepancy as to who said what was shut off. Like, is the landlord responsible to fill the tank? Is the tenant responsible to fill the tank? Is there no heat because the tenant is not employing heat, or is there no heat because of a deficit with the housing situation?
I think part of the heat might be because the cellar flooded and maybe nothing came back on.
And how much did it flood?
I don't know, it was 2 weeks ago. They didn't call me, I have no.
Oh,
Because
it
there's
was
a,
I thought it was this weekend, no?
well, that's what they told me, and he said 2 weeks ago, and she goes, oh yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, I'm getting a mixed story, which, sorry for being confusing, but that's the way this is with them.
So are they able to live there per the fire department, or no?
The fire department doesn't make habitability, we do. The Board of Health does. Depending on whether or not it has certain conditions in it.
Right, but I'm not sure if we're aware of the conditions, why they're not being met, you know what I'm saying?
Yep, no, I know exactly what you're
I
saying.
mean, it's one thing if it's out of oil and just needs to be filled, and then it's whose responsibility was it? Was it the tenant? I mean, it's just
Single-family
odd that
home,
it's,
it would be the
rent is
tenants.
due on October 1st. Like, did they pay their rent, or was this a plan? Like, there are two sides to every story.
I don't
just
know.
don't want to set up the landlord, even though he has other issues from the original complaint, to not be receiving rent has to do the repairs, and if it is compatible, it's just a matter of like, oh, I shut the heat off because we didn't pay for our oil, and now we wanna stay at a hotel, but we're gonna use our rent money, and we want our apartment fixed, and then we wanna move back in.
I mean, they do want the apartment fixed. I don't know, to tell you the truth, but I do know that certain conditions have to exist. I don't know if they even have a lease, because I asked them that, and one says, yes, we do, the other one says we don't. The landlord's like, I don't know if I can put my hands on it. It's a game issue. It's, you
Because
know.
if, once they move out, if there is no lease, they're technically vacating the premises.
Right.
So then as far as they're moving back in, I feel like we're walking a fine line, because if they come forth and say, well, the Board of Health of East Bridgewater told us to evacuate and seek alternate housing, then it's gonna come back on us that we approved this, whereas I'm not quite sure.
Well, you can do that. In alternate housing under code means.
Well, I
giving them a
understand
list
that
of
if
rental
those
places.
conditions aren't being met, but are they not being met? Who is not meeting them? Are they not being met because of the landlord's negligence, or are they not being met because the tenant is supposed to pay for oil or gas? We don't know which one it is, and they haven't, so they're saying we have no heat. You don't just move out of apartment because the stove is broken. If the stove was broken and he tried to do a repair, but then they said, oh, you can't bring it in, you know what I mean? There's always two sides.
I know, and my
just don't
point
wanna-
is, that's why I'm saying if you're gonna do the fine thing, do it to both of them. In other words, make them both start.
Well,
going
I'm
in
less
that
concerned
direction.
with the finding, and I'm more concerned with how it went about that they were evacuating. Are they evacuating out of
I don't know if they're
necessity, or-
evacuated. They were just told the conditions here are bad. I didn't issue an order to condemn and vacate. I haven't done that yet, because I
But
haven't got the report.
Fire department red tagged the
The
heat,
fire
which means
department-
that they couldn't stay without heat and hot water, correct?
They shouldn't be staying without heat and hot water.
All right, so maybe we need to.
So we
follow
don't,
up.
we don't know why the fire department red tagged the heat.
Or which heat
The
element
gas
is-
doesn't work.
Okay.
They have a problem with the stove, and I don't know how the stove.
Okay, that's the stove,
Yeah,
right? I
well,
understand the
But is
stove,
it
so they,
heated by oil or gas? We don't know.
both. No, by gas and by electric. As far as I can tell.
So what about the oil?
She kept saying oil. I didn't see.
So I think we need to follow up and clarify, and maybe reach out to the fire department to see what is actually, because I feel like this is extremely confusing. What do you guys think?
so we need to
I
understand
think.
what type of heat's in the house. Is it oil or is it gas?
Is it non-operational, or is it just empty?
If
Did
it's,
you not
if it's
pay the
oil.
bill?
If it's gas, then it would be non-operational, correct? Right, so oil could be, if
Or
it
could
is
be
oil, oil
Well,
could be.
I know you're saying you don't know, but you're saying you're implementing a situation, and if we don't have the answers, we can't properly make a decision, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know if the gas stove.
If
is
it's
tied
gas,
to
is it
heater.
oil, is it electric, is there no heat and hot water, was it just empty or shut off? Did the fire department say, oh, their only heat source is being red tagged and
No,
struck
they
out, so
didn't
then,
say that. They said they were red tagging the stove,
so just the
stove
stove, not the gas?
and they shut the gas off.
To the stove or to the actual development?
I thought it was the stove.
All right, because that's different than shutting.
No, I know, I just didn't
They
get
give
that
us a
clar-
copy of,
I don't have anything in writing, Bob.
from the fire department.
I don't have
electrical.
anything in writing, Rob.
Okay,
All right.
That's why I said to you, I didn't take an action on it yet, because I don't have anything. I
okay.
don't have
Are
the
you
reports.
anticipating getting something from?
I hope so, yeah.
All right. So I think maybe we should put this on hold.
Yeah, we need to table this. Let's just make sure it gets on the agenda, and then if you can update us, Jean Marie, with a response from both fire and electrical.
I will when I get it,
Okay,
okay?
and if there's a delay, then if there's anything we can do to shake the tree, or, because we're getting into cold weather.
Which
And-
is why we,
Right, so we
did
need
this
to, we need to,
Yeah, 2 months
we
ago.
need to expedite this as best we can, and as fair as we can to both the tenant and the landlord.
And who?
But,
Oh,
go ahead,
sorry,
Lisa,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, that's all right, I was interrupting, I apologize. Who from the fire department went out with you?
Craig Windsor was there, Lieutenant Olson was there. Someone else who I didn't see a ticket
Okay.
on, because he had on the overalls and then he slid them down, so I'm, you know. There was basically, I would call it a squad.
Okay. All right, because you're in the office alone, I will go to the fire department tomorrow and see if they have a report and what their findings are, because it's just hard for us to make a decision if we don't have all the facts in place. Is it gas, is it oil, is it, electric, is it shut off just to the stove where he needs to replace the stove, or do they not have heat and hot water? Are they vacating out of your recommendation, or are they vacating out of housing code violations? There's, you know, because I know that the landowner, and if it was implied by the Board of Health that they have the option to vacate, and some of these things are not the landlord's fault, there's going to be repercussions because he is a very well-known property owner and owns most, so he knows the laws. Even though he's in violation of an issue from before, if this stuff is new and we're saying, oh, just take your rent and move out, like, that's gonna come back on us if it's not something that is of necessity.
That's one of the remedies that are available to all tenants, whether it's this one or not.
Right, but I don't want it to be that we're telling them, oh, he didn't do this, you can leave and go stay at a hotel and not pay your rent. Because then the flip side of that is if they don't have a lease, he doesn't have to allow them back in there. So that also could come back on us.
I kind of stay out of whether or not he's evicted them, because I'm not gonna get into that.
Okay,
That's really a non-issue for me, or should be a non-issue for us. That's a civil matter between him and his tenants.
And who was out on the electrical side? Building
I had to
inspector?
ask David Bentley, I think his name is, he's the electrical inspector.
Okay. So we need to follow up with him as well.
I will, it's, you know, this happened this afternoon.
Yeah, I know this afternoon. I get all that. I know this all came about, you know, really fast, but weather's changing quickly and,
And that's one of the things the landlord said, you didn't tell me about the heat. The heat requirement kicks in September 15th. So I wasn't out there with the heating requirement. Just like we only do screens at certain times of the year.
no, and I get it, it's just that there's a huge variance between there's no heat and hot water and we haven't supplied it and we shut it off, you know what I mean?
Especially where it's a single-family home, you have to get a copy of the lease if they have one to see
Who's responsible to fill it, yeah.
exactly.
Okay, Beavers?
Oh, site visit with Beaver Solution on September 27th. There was a bunch of us out there at different times. Not all of us together because of the way it came out. No beaver activity at the Harvard Street Beaver Dam, but there is probably beaver activity downstream. So one of the neighbors was concerned about that.
Vaccine clinic?
We have a vaccine clinic October 6th, Thursday, with the new COVID boosters, BA4 and BA5. And people are signing up online and also calling into the office, so making appointments for them and sending out their paper confirmations.
Do we know how many are signed up for that clinic?
I don't have any way of knowing. It's electronically done through Osco Drug.
Oh, okay. And online permitting, so that's still a headache, I hear.
Well, yes, because they sign up online, and then since I have to follow up with paperwork and issue permits and certificate of compliances, that isn't done online.
So the previous, as far as the sign-up goes, that's more or less them having the option to pay post-permit and actually signing up to have a permit started.
Application's available online, yes.
So is
the
there anything that
application
you
comes
need to fill
electronic.
in online, or is it just a matter of taking them off a list and then going?
Nope, they do 'em- the application comes in online, and then they can pay or not pay. So they either can come into the office with a check, and then what I do is pull up their permit electronically and put, they paid by check. The implementation part is trying to print out the permit and then follow it up from there. For instance, disposal works construction permits, which is basically what I'm doing. It doesn't issue the big permit until I do the inspection. The inspections are not online.
I'm just trying to figure out how it's becoming more work for you, so is that?
Because I'm doing both the electronic one coming in, and then
And what
I
does
have to
the
do,
electronic one entail?
I track it when it comes in and make sure it gets paid down at the treasurer's office. And then I have to print out a paper copy of it and put it in the file.
Okay.
and vice versa. If I get a paper file, I have to put it in electronically, put that it's paid by check, and then do a turnover and put it down at the treasurer's office. It's hard when you're doing both of them. It can be a lot of work. Hopefully, the administrative assistant will be doing that because that's, that's office work.
Alrighty, I have no updates. Anyone else have anything not on the agenda?
I do. I know this has been kind of a common theme, but the Bridge Street landfill, we were
Yes.
tasked with getting estimates for the fence and then also the ventilation.
I talked to, and my brain went dead, John Hines.
Yep, John, yep.
And to see where we were with that, and he said that he didn't know, he wasn't aware the board made a decision with how much of it you were gonna fence. And I don't remember you deciding that either, so I'm not,
I think it was in the minutes from a previous meeting that they said
Yep.
we did not have to fence the entire thing.
no, because some of it goes into wetlands.
And I don't recall off the top of my head, I believe it was the back portion,
Okay,
but it should be.
so
in the meeting
basically,
minutes.
knowing exactly what you wanna fence, or how much of it you wanna fence, is key to getting a cost. So I think that's where we are, right there.
So right now,
So let me pull
we
that
need to
up.
communicate back to John how much lineal we need to fence. How much of the area,
Right,
what we're not going to fence.
right, and what
Okay,
kind of
so we-
fencing you want to use, stockade or chain link.
Okay?
Because DPW, as far as I know, that would have to be done by an outside firm.
Right, no, absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
And
The
that's-
venting may be
We need to
an
get
issue.
estimates and then go to town meeting and get the money appropriated and,
And I'm pretty sure this is in the minutes, because I
Yep.
think they delineated what type of fencing and a general ballpark of what we were going to fence.
yep, no, I agree. I think both those, that information's in here
Okay.
somewhere. We just gotta find it and pull it out. And then what about ventilation? Candy canes. Some of the candy canes were broke. That was
Right.
part of the,
I think that was what he said he would do in their, quote, off-season, which would be coming up right now,
Yeah, I
actually,
think-
yeah.
So when did you talk to him?
Just last week, Wednesday, I think.
even though I know it's their off-season, it will reach a point where,
It's
you know,
too
weather will
cold,
be a
yeah.
factor that they can't get the work done.
Right, right.
All right, would the board have, be opposed if I just kind of reached out to John for clarification and see where we are and,
I think he was waiting for us to tell him what those numbers were,
okay, that's on the fencing.
okay? Linear feet.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not sure. I thought that when we were trying to implement it, it was the other way around. They were going to take the lead and let us know, but I'd have to check back in the minutes. But I know that the length, because originally they looked at the whole perimeter, but then they said we didn't have to do that. I think off the top of my head, and I could be wrong, it was the entire back and then a certain other portion.
It was mostly Bridge Street and along the yards on Washington, is that Washington Street?
No, I think Plymouth.
Plymouth, thank you.
Yeah.
Plymouth
yeah,
Street,
on 106.
yeah.
But yeah, if you want to take that
Yeah,
on,
okay,
that's
I'll
fine.
take you.
That's why I asked him last week where it
Yeah, no,
was.
that's all right. We'll, just so that, you know, we can keep all this. You got a lot going on right now, Jean Marie, so. And then, my last little note of, are the forever chemicals out on the Halifax, East Bridgewater, Hanson line.
Okay. Basically, they were tested once, so we're not gonna get a good feel or picture of that until they test roughly every 6 months for that. So we're not gonna get a good feel for that almost 2 years. Whether it's migrating.
I'm sorry,
or-
did you say 2 years?
Because if it's done every 6 months,
Yeah.
or even every quarterly, you're not gonna get a plume developing or groundwater distance or,
And we've only done it once.
and it's only been done once through DEP.
And I was gonna say, that's Mass DEP that does that.
That's Mass DEP,
Okay.
yep.
Do we know when that was done?
I can't tell you the exact date, but I think it was like August 10th or 12th,
so just
August doesn't
somewhere in
ring a
there.
bell because
Yeah, it was very recently,
It was
Lisa.
a change of leadership
Yep,
in that category.
yep.
And it took a little bit for them to reach back out to you.
So it might be like an August, January thing. you know, but
Okay.
once we know kind of where it's going, my recommendation to the board would be, you know, you could always put a moratorium on irrigation wells in that area until, like, 4 or 5 years, until you've got data.
So how many, have we got any requests for wells out there? Because that is a
We don't, the
concern.
subdivision isn't even developed yet. I'm still doing parks on that. That's that Central Street to Industrial Way
Right.
Park area I'm doing. I'm still doing parks out there on the raw land before they do the subdivision.
But I think there's, I mean, I know that's not a lot. I think there's 2 or maybe 2.5 houses built. So eventually, I think that's gonna become fast and furious in the spring. Where we're gonna start to see the.
That's why I say the least you could do is maybe you want to think about putting a moratorium on any irrigation wells for a couple of
that-
years.
That's another topic that we should all research a
Yeah.
little bit and keep on our radar screen, whether it stays on the agenda or not. I mean, obviously, it's something that I bring up every time we get to this point.
Yeah.
You know, we have folks that are building expensive homes down there, and, you know, they start putting wells in, we don't know what's gonna come out.
They-
Agreed?
So I would say, since it has town water, you'd be very safe to say, you must hook up to town water, like we do almost every other house,
Okay.
except for the ones over on West Bridgewater side. So that would be, I mean, all Central Street is hooked up to town water. Even the new ones.
Right, but again, if there's folks that wanna put a well in for irrigation and things like that, then,
You could make
you
them
know,
wait.
what are they putting on their lawn that their kids are gonna be running over?
You'd be very within your rights to say, we're gonna put a 5-year or 3-year moratorium here until the testing's finished, until the site assessment has been done by DEP. It's for watering a lawn, that's not a necessity, you know, it's not a life thing, it's not like septic and portable water sources.
Right, but if you're building that type of house,
You
and
want
some
it
people
in.
really want, you know, some do, some don't. So if you're a homeowner, you kind of, some might want that option and have some visibility into what their options are, so.
But that's what I mean,
Just concern.
that is an option, and you make that decision based on
Okay.
what's out there.
Okay, we'll have to retouch that as well.
Yep.
All right,
Some things
so
do pop back up.
with that, we will bring our Monday, October 3rd meeting to a close. Can I get a motion to close?
Motion?
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.